Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Mona Ferguson. I'm going to facilitate tonight's Community Advisory Group meeting. This is our first meeting of the committee, and we're very excited. And like I think all of our committee meetings will be open to the public. And I'll talk more about the committee and how it formed and all of that. But this has been, I think, a long time coming. Many people have wanted this to form, and so it feels like a really important moment. And I know a couple of committee members couldn't be here because it's July, and that's normal, and I hope they're having a fun time. And we have an agenda for tonight, which is, I'll go over just a little bit of context setting and introduce Chuck and Jessica and myself, and go through what to expect tonight. And then we'll do introductions of the committee, and then in the room, just so we all know who's present together. And then we are going to go into an introduction on the cleanup. And this should feel pretty high level. What's happening? What's the geography? What's the timeline? What do we need to know as a sort of anchoring conversation for what we're going to be talking about in this group? And then in future meetings, we can go much deeper in different elements of the cleanup so that you all get questions answered that you want answered. And then we will talk a little bit around 8 o'clock about how the committee will work and sort of expectations for communication and other things like that. And we'll wrap up at 8:30. That's the plan. Lots to talk about. This beginning part is going to be a little bit redundant for any of you who were at the information session in May, because not everybody on the committee was at that information session and not everybody in the public. So if you were there, bear with us for a few minutes. You'll see some of the same content. So starting just like, who are these people in front of you? I work at a place called the Consensus Building Institute. I'm a contractor with the Environmental Protection Agency, and I do facilitation and mediation on scientific and technical topics with the public. I actually live in Boston, and I worked on a series of CAGs in other places. So I'm very happy to help this one get set up and bring whatever expertise I can from that. We're a nonprofit, and my job is to be neutral. I'm not the technical expert. I'm going to be the one kind of holding the people piece together for this committee. So I think I just said this kind of stuff. And I have a family. I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old. I'm picking up my 11-year-old at camp tomorrow, Saturday. I can't wait. And my 9-year-old likes costumes and was just dressed all in red when I saw him on Zoom for a thing he's doing tomorrow at his day camp. Jessica, you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Evans. I work for the EPA. I do community involvement. I'm also not the technical expert, but if you have any questions or need somebody to reach out to, my contact information is going to be at the end of the presentation. I've been with EPA for about 7 years. I started as an emergency responder and then transitioned over to doing community involvement a few years ago. I also served in the Coast Guard for a few years as well. So I've lived all around the country, but now I live in St. Louis County, so I'm actually local here. So I can meet with you all anytime. I do local hours at Bridgeton City Hall every week. I can meet you wherever and whenever, as long as it's reasonable, if anybody wants to, talk sometime. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I have 2 kids, 2 and 4, so dealing with toddlers keeps me awake most nights, but also have a couple animals, and I really love being in nature. So.
Is it? Thank you for asking. If it's hard to hear, you can scoot yourselves up, and B, we can start using a mic.
Yeah, we can use a microphone
For the presenters. See how this.
Is that better?
Oh, yes. Very loud.
Okay. That's just a little bit about me, though. I'll see if it's really far.
Here, I'll advance.
And now Chuck.
Hi, I'm Chuck. I apparently am the guinea pig for the microphone.
Doing great.
I work for EPA as well. I've been with the agency about 10 years. I started as an analytical chemist in the Region 7 lab. I transitioned to Superfund almost 3 years ago. And as you can see on the screen, that's my girlfriend Kim. That was us going ziplining. So we also enjoy being outside. I've got some grown children, and she's got a 12-year-old son. So this is interesting for me to go back a little bit. I like being outdoors and those kinds of things. I have a little bit more technical knowledge than the previous two, but even that's.
But you're overseeing the cleanup.
But I am overseeing. I am for EPA. I am a regulator for this site.
Thank you. Okay. Next we are. Let's go then. I'm sure I did not finish this next. I wanted to just say a little bit about, sorry, I'm going to make you do it for 1 second. Do you know if these slides about like tag are in here? Oh, they're there. I just need to switch live. Okay. So, I know the opposite switch. Don't mind us. Actually, I do want to do this. So, many of you have been to many public meetings related to this contamination of organoids in the area. This is one of the types of meetings that you will be able to go to. And I want to just distinguish between this committee and what it is and those other ones, which you'll have to know that separately because I actually don't know all about those. For this committee, there are a set of different roles. There are members who have been either self-nominated from the community or appointed from their entity for particular voices that we wanted. There are technical advisors. This team from a group called CEO is going to be able to come in and translate super technical content for us. I'm facilitating right now. We hope will be a planning team, which would be made up of some committee members who are willing to be on a call or two between meetings to help design the agendas. We have liaisons, so our EPA team will have Army Corps liaison, probably a Department of, what's the DER, DEP, what's the state? Department of Natural Resources, thank you. Who get kept up to speed on what's happening in the CAG and who hopefully will be in the room with us and help answer questions when we need it, and then the public, who are very welcome. So with that, today we have our committee members at the table, and those of you in the room will have picked up a member list so you can see. We did an application process. Anyone was welcome to apply from the community, and we were looking for 8 seats, but we had 11 applicants, and we just didn't feel like it made sense to choose among you because everybody had good reasons for applying. And so we have 11 community representatives, and we have appointed representatives representing the city of Florissant. We're waiting to find somebody from the city of Hazelwood. If anybody has good contacts there, we would love them. From the St. Louis County, we have an environmental representative. We have 2 public health seats. Then we have 2 school seats, one from Hazelwood Schools and one from Ferguson Florissant Schools, 1 emergency services seats, 1 economic development seat, and then a couple of others that are empty. So right now we have 4 empty seats. And once the group is up and going, you will be able to figure out what you want to do with membership. It was this weird in-between where we were kind of holding it and we wanted to get each form. And then over time it can evolve. So that's the logic behind it.
And I'd like to say a couple of other logistical things before we really get to this. Number one being, this is also on Zoom. This is a hybrid meeting, so some people are watching on Zoom. We have right now, I think, 3 people in the Zoom room besides us. And it's also being recorded. So the recording of this meeting will be posted on the website, so anyone can observe and go back and figure out what's going on. Let me see, and I'm going to write a very high-level summary also. So there's at least a little bit of a written document saying, hey, this meeting happened, here's who was there, here are the key things we talked about. We do not have operating procedures yet, which are sort of the agreements of how we're going to play together. So for the moment, I would just ask you to be respectful and thoughtful. If you're a talker, make space for other people. And if you're quiet, lean in, like everybody at this table. You're here because we want to hear from you. So, and there are several handouts. I think the people in the room will have seen there's an agenda, so you can keep that kind of in the back of your mind. There is a member list, and then I think was it from Harvey that we have operating procedures from the Westlake CAG, which are very expensive, which were brought as an example, but we will be developing those, and we can use that and others as examples to pull from, so we're not making things up from scratch. And there are copies of the slides from the Army Corps of Engineers that we'll be going through today. We will post also these other meeting slides on the website so that everybody has access to everything. With that, I think those are the logistics. My job is to keep the meeting on track and to make sure everybody gets to share their perspectives constructively and well. And I will use the agenda as my guide. And this is the first time we've all met, so we don't actually know what our dynamics are, and we're just figuring it out. And we're going to go around the table. I think it's possible that when I ask you, CAG members, what brings you to serve on the CAG, you will want to tell me 40 minutes worth of things, and I'm going to ask you to give me 2 sentences. And we can make time for that, the deeper stories another time, if we think that's important. I want to hear kind of what's going on for people. So if you would share your name, your affiliation, and why you joined the CAG, and we'll go around the table with that question, and then we'll go around the room just saying your name and if there's any important affiliation, just so everybody hears in the room. I'm going to pass it.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Kim Baker with SSN Health. I'm an appointed member on the public health space, and I actually work on several CAGs in both St. Louis County and St. Charles County.
Hi, good evening. I'm Rebecca Zoll. I'm the president and CEO of North County Incorporated. We're an economic and community development advocacy organization for the entire North St. Louis area, and I too serve on multiple different CAGs in different walks of life as I change hats. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, I'm Laura Madden, and I'm going to try and figure out which part, 2 things I'm going to mention too. I'm from this area. I grew up, I was born in Berkeley, raised in Wisdom Terrace. 6 out of 7 of my family members have been impacted, including me, by cancer. And so I'm here for that. But I'm also here because I believe that we as a community can repair, restore, regenerate. And I want to help with that.
I'm Harvey Ferguson. I don't live in the area, but I was tapped by the state representative responsible for the area that Westlake landfill was in when that fire first started. And I was constituent outreach, and I worked with a lot of the folks in this room and a lot of other political people and federal agencies to get our community some standing and to get some things done. And after he was not in office anymore, I became the chair of the Westlake CAG, and I'm bringing a sample of the bylaws. If you were looking ahead, reading ahead, It's only the first 2 pages that really matter, if you look at page 4 and 5.
Hello, I'm Ashley Renal, and I'm a member of the Florissant community.
I'm Stacy Schimpf. I no longer live in the Florissant community, but spent many years there. And I've been a community advocate on this mission to try to get something done to this area for many, many years.
My name is Danielle Spradley, and I am representing St. Louis County. And this issue is also personal for me, as my family grew up here and they are impacted as well.
Good afternoon or evening. My name is Dr. Chantel Jones. I am former state representative of District 67, where the community is hugely impacted. I am also a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I've lost many family members, lived in the area from Kinlock all the way to Florissant, and I am deeply rooted in repair and restore and healing the community, and also an advocate for breast cancer.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Cunningham. I am the Director of St. Louis County Public Health Department. I think that it's not only important for the health department to be directly involved, but I'm also from this area. This is something that is really important and passionate to me because I have family here as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff. I'm the Deputy Chief Fire Medical Officer for the Flagstaff Fire Protection District. Over 30 years of service to the community, and I'm here for the voice of the EMS and fire field. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Powers, and I live in each of the districts, so there's a lot of people that I'm directly in contact with that I care a lot about that are affected by this.
Hi, I'm Steve Lewis. I'm a board member of the Hazelwood Board of Education, and my board selected me to be here because they think I'm the most technical person on the board, so here I am.
Oh boy, I'll try to make this quick. I'm Kim Byzantine. My family has lived in Florissant for more than 75 years. My mom still lives here. I lived here for more than 25 years before I moved away. My son was born with a glioblastoma multiforme, so regionally affected. I started the Coldwater Group. I was one of the members that initiated the ACSDR study, the DHSS study, and the Department of Health studies. I have a minor in physics. I have an engineering degree. I have a nursing degree and a doctorate in nursing. I practice as a nurse practitioner in the emergency room currently. I don't know what else to say. I'm here because I am very passionate about this and have been working on this for more than 15 years.
Hi, my name is Joe Vrabel. I'm the city engineer for the city of Florissant. I've been a lifelong resident of Florissant for 28 years, and I just want to help wherever I can and serve our community. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Great. If you would just share your name and if there's any affiliation that's relevant.
Say my name? Yeah. My name's Edward Schwogel from Hazelwood.
I'm Phil Moser. I'm the chief of the Foods Rep and Environmental Branch in the St. Louis District, Army Corps of Engineers.
Bill will be presenting.
Hi, I'm Robin Barks. I'm the Corps of Engineers Technical Lead.
Hi, I'm Susan Adams. I'm the program manager with the Army Corps of Engineers for the St. Louis site. Hi, I'm Joanne Wade. I'm the North County project manager for Foods Rep.
My name is Mike Wade.
Hey, I'm Wendy Verhoff. I'm a professor of history here at St. Louis Community College, and I completed my research on nuclear history and environmental history.
Candy Verhoff, and I'm just here because I do have family members.
Hi, my name is Karen Anthony. I'm a health education coordinator at St. Louis County Department of Public Health, and I'm Dr. Cunningham's alternate.
Alberta Cook and Chuck Cook and I are twins.
I'm Charlotte Griffin. I also live in North County. Our church backs up to the creek. I have flown over to our creek several times. We do have fish there. We didn't know that the creek, about the probably with the creek. And we have eaten out that lake several times. And we have several people that have cancer.
My name is Linda Cook, and I grew up in Kinloch, and now I'm living in the Ferguson area, and have come down with sarcoidosis. But it wasn't until I moved to the Ferguson area. Alicia Hunter, a member of this community, Kinloch community, Florissant community, and I'm here supporting my mother, Savilla Griffin, who was impacted by the creek.
My name is Savilla Griffin. I grew up in Kinloch. I now reside in Ferguson all my life. Well, from the time I was 8 until now, and I'm 71. But my life has been impacted because I was diagnosed with a rare lung disorder. It's called sarcoidosis, which has affected my lymph nodes. Now that I have nodules on my lymph nodes, and I have a growing, I won't know until I go to my doctor next month, but I have a growing knot in my chest. And every year it's getting bigger, so we'll find out. And yes, I have been affected by it, and by the grace of God, I'm still here.
Hi, my name is Krista Montgomery, and I am with Congressman Bob Under's office.
Oh, I'm Rosie Johnson, and I was impacted as well as my son. And I lost him last year to a rare form of cancer, and it doesn't even have a name. It's got an issue. So I'm here so no one else has to feel the pain that I feel.
Hello, my name is Jenny Berg, and I grew up in Blackjack. My family grew up in Blackjack, an extended family in Hazelwood. And I'm here, to, as one said, to help restore, repair, and regenerate the community. I loved growing up in Florissant and Blackjack, and I think it needs, I'm interested in how it's gonna clean up and how we're gonna continue to grow this community.
Hi, my name is Alvia Carroll, and this is my husband, Wayne Carroll. We've lived in Florissant for 25 years, which is Blackjack as well. And we both was affected by cancer.
Hello, my name is Porter Volk. I'm a health assessor with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services.
My name is Jamie Drury. I'm the health educator for Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services.
Hi, Brooks. I grew up in Florissant. Couldn't have grown up in a better place. My mom had cancer 3 times. My dad had multiple myeloma and leukemia and 9 houses on both sides of us. People had cancer and other issues. I have some issues. My brother has some issues. And I'm here to support everybody.
Michelle Hartman, I'm the Health and Risk Assessment Program Manager at the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services.
Tom Chapman. I live next to the Westlake landfill. I'm a co-founder of Just Moms STL. I have family who lived and still live in North County and are impacted, and my own family has been impacted, including my son and my husband. And I'm here to make sure that we stop the exposures once and for all.
Good evening. My name is Denise Brock. I am actually the ombudsman to the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. My parents worked at Mellencrot off of Destrehan and Broadway years before I was born. My father died from lung cancer and leukemia at the age of 52. My mother ended up being the first payment out under a piece of legislation called the Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program Act. I have seen so much illness across this nation. And again, my family has lived here within all of these zip codes my entire life. And I am so proud to be here and hear your stories and see the way that this community pulls together. Thank you.
My name is Alicia Retcher. I grew up in Florissant. I have family impacted with lung cancer. It's a great place to grow up, a beautiful community. I also advocate for workers with various illnesses under the EEOI CPA, and also have done quite a few RICA claims for RICA 5.
Hi, my name is Glenn Murphy. Grew up in Spanish Lake, and I'm a retired fire captain of 38 years with the district, and I'm interested to see what's going on.
Good evening, my name is Christina Lay. I'm with the Congressman Wesley Bell's office, and I'm also here with my Director of Outreach, Rhonda, who just walked in.
I'm Greg Rakers with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Kevin Stolman, Assistant Chief, Pattonville Fire District. We're responsible for monitoring and emergencies at the Westlake landfill. Also grew up in Florissant. Wife's family grew up on Country Club Court next to the water treatment of Coldwater Creek.
Hi, Debbie Disser. I grew up in Berkeley, played on the quarry field. I worked next to and lived by the Westlake landfill. I work with Just Moms STL, and I lost my brother to a glioblastoma multiforme. It was stage 4 when they found it. He died when he was 43. My mom had ovarian cancer. I lost my aunt to breast cancer that metastasized to her brain, and a cousin who had back cancer, and we lost her.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Randy Everett, my wife Darlena, and we were the original owners of one of the 6 houses slated for demolition on Coldwater Creek in the Cades Cove subdivision.
Thank you for being here, Randy.
Thank you, everyone. I feel like we have all the history in this space, which kind of gives us a sense of the weight of everything.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I hate to interrupt. I forgot to mention that the creek was right across from where we live. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, the creek was right across from where we live, and we actually used to play in that creek. And so, you know, we didn't have board games and all that stuff back then, like kids do now. So we played in that creek a lot, a whole lot. And like I said, my house was right on the corner of Maple and Granbury, and the creek was like one street. Well, it was right behind the house. It was right behind the house in front of us.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to shift us into like a lot of not deep conversation for a couple minutes. Forgive me. About what a community advisory group is, because this type of group is something that EPA does and forms, and their specific kind of constraints. And I want to introduce you to that a little bit. Oh, this is not nice. This way. So a community advisory group, this is from EPA's website, how they define it. It's made up of representatives of diverse community interests. A CAG is designed to serve as the focal point for the exchange of information among local community and EPA, the state regulatory agency, and other pertinent federal agencies involved in cleanup of the Superfund site. Its purpose is to provide a public forum for community members to present and discuss their needs and concerns related to the Superfund decision-making process. I think Phil will correct us and say that the FOOS process or something. We'll like figure out, there's a couple different terms, and I'm not so clear on that, but we'll get there together. So this forum is meant to be a primary place for the community to talk about this particular cleanup, where everyone's getting the same information at the same time. It means that the wisdom of the group can inform the people doing the cleanup, because they get to know you, everybody builds relationships, and you can amplify things that really matter to your constituents. like one-on-one, in-person, directly. And similarly, that the people doing the cleanup can share with you, like, what's happening, like, what's the actual information. When you see people out on the shore, what are they doing? How long are they gonna be there? Like, what can you tell your community members to expect in the next 2 months, in the next year, in the next 5 years? In setting this up, I talked to many community members, and all signs pointed toward it making sense to form this. People have a lot of questions. There has been incredible community advocacy through a lot of different channels. I heard about low trust of government agencies from sort of long past, like decades. Everybody said the same thing, like, yes, this makes sense. And everybody wants this cleanup done as well as it can possibly be done, because we can't go back, but we can go forward. And we heard that meetings should be held where community members will feel comfortable, and that meetings have sometimes been held in places that don't feel comfortable for everyone. So we will be working on that. Among the questions that people flagged in those interviews were even like, where is the contamination? How far does it go? Like, what do we know? What's the plan for the cleanup? When the cleanup is done, what's going to be left? Like, how clean is clean? What does that mean? And how does it work? Like, what actually technically is happening to remove these contaminants? So we formed this group. The purpose language right now for this CAG is to provide a single forum for people involved in the St. Louis airport sites and Coldwater Creek cleanup. Community members and other stakeholders can talk together and exchange information, plans, concerns, and ideas. One thing to note is that community advisory groups don't have authority over the project, right? Your power is the power of like persuasion and information. There's a technical team of many, many people doing a lot of really in-depth technical work, and they will take your advice sometimes, and they will not take your advice sometimes. But there's a lot of strength in you all amplifying each other's voices. And I've seen it in other communities, like, oh, 3 people are flagging this issue. We all actually really want to raise that up and spread the word. So that is like the power of you being here together. The name placards that I made the committee make, thank you for bearing with me. When you want to ask a question in the middle of the presentation, or when you have a comment and you want to kind of get in line, instead of having to wait for the pause when the person stops talking and stick your hand up, you can just put your name placard up. And I will call on you. I'll do my best to call on people generally in order. Kind of catch my eye if I'm not seeing it, but I would kind of keep a running list and check in with the presenter, like, do you want to break now for questions? Do you want to hold a few minutes? So that's what those are for. If you change your mind and you don't want to make your comment anymore, or it was already answered, just take it down. But otherwise, please leave it up for as long until I call on you. And 6 points if you turn it toward me so I can see your name. Then I will call on you more politely than if I can't see your name. And I think that's most of the logistics. I think I said we're recording. I'm going to keep using the wrong computer for my slides. I said this already about this. So with that, what is it we're making here together? What are we doing? We're going to go to the technical presentation, and I think Phil is giving that. And we are ready. And this is the bulk of our meeting now. We'll go till about 8 o'clock for this technical presentation. So come on up, and I will give you the mic. And then I will consult with you as you go. If there are questions, if and when you feel like the right moments are, you can tell me if I will wait till more time. Thank you. Your slide is actually. There we go. With my book.
We're going to be in the way of some of the slides to come. With love.
Okay, I introduced myself a little earlier, Phil Moser, Chief of the Food Rep and Environmental Branch in the St. Louis District. So, like EPA, our counterparts with EPA, a little bit about myself that I maybe not have shared before in other public forums. I see a lot of familiar faces. Welcome, nice to see you all again, and seeing some new faces as well. And I appreciate the introductions as well. It's always good to get to know and hear stories. I personally don't often get a lot of time for that in our public forums. Often giving presentation, answering questions, and kind of floating around and able to have a lot of individual conversations, which are very beneficial for me and to our entire program to help move this progress forward as a whole community. So, about myself, I am a Navy veteran. I was in the Navy for about 10 years, either teaching on a nuclear platform or going through the school on a nuclear power program in the Navy. So that's part of my background and how I basically got my feet underneath me in that technical realm. Nuclear engineer, also engineering management aspect of it, and then did some work with one of the contractors doing work on Coldwater Creek. To going up and down the creek, take the creek banks, taking samples, water samples, soil samples, things of that nature, before I moved over to the Corps of Engineers as a project manager for the St. Louis downtown site, and now being kind of the program manager and environmental branch chief in charge of the food wrap cleanup for all of the sites in the St. Louis area, and also work that we do for EPA in regions 5 and 7, cleaning up some of the old areas around the lead mining sites and down in southeast Missouri, as well as over in Illinois. So the first slide here, we just have some more recent photos of some of the sampling and some of the activities we do on Coldwater Creek. That picture there is actually close to the end of Coldwater Creek, near the Missouri River, where we have sampled from all the way from the St. Louis Airport site and the 14-mile stretch going all the way down to the mouth. Some of the areas that we do flag to make sure, that's part of our overall inspection program, which I'll highlight a little bit later in the presentation. So tonight we're going to go through and just give you kind of a general overview of where we are, what our authority is from an overall program perspective and how that relates to St. Louis and our program, as well as a little bit about the St. Louis sites. So some of that history behind why we are here today, as well as progress today, and some of the current status, a little bit into the current status of the activities. So we're trying to figure out the camera.
Can the eyes down there?
Maybe able
just
to
a moment.
Swap the.
Like, why is it?
It does say your video is now off.
It says it's off, but it's showing the video. I don't know what it's doing. Sorry, we'll fix it for next time. You have to leave the corner on your paper slide.
And some of this may seem familiar to many of you. I've given these presentations, given the similar presentation in other forums, whether it's a public meeting or talking to Ms. Powers' class over at Cross Keys Middle School, and also talking to students at Washington University as well. So I like to be able to respond to individuals who have questions, anybody who has questions about the program, to try to help educate, try to bring the entire community along with the overall understanding of why we're here and where we're going, and some of the technical aspects behind it can be difficult as well. So always trying to help out with those types of answers, as well as not just myself, but some of the team members that we have here as well. Really dedicated to making sure that we're all kind of going along in this process together. So I appreciate the efforts of EPA on this, knowing that, to Ona's point a little bit earlier, that there is it's kind of a different situation with Superfund and FOOSREP. We are given specific authorities in FOOSREP, but we're not given all Superfund authority. So one of the authorities or things that we have that's kind of in the old authority legislation that brought the FOOSREP over to Corps of Engineers is we don't have the ability to pay for a CAG. So that's one of the things that the EPA has been able to help us out with, being part of a federal facility agreement and kind of how that all works out. So appreciate the efforts of EPA on that, and also kind of bring it along as a whole of government approach to be able to help out the community with the overall cleanup, as well as bringing some information and ability to talk amongst the CAG with you guys. So I mentioned it just a bit ago about how we came to have the mission. FoosRap, it's going to be in a little bit of timeline, but I'll mention it now. FoosRap was actually started in 1974. It was a Department of Energy program, and then came to the Corps in 1997 when Congress transferred the actual authority for the execution of FoosRap over to us. We follow CERCLA and the National Oil and Hazardous Substance Contingency Plan, or NCP, just like the Superfund sites as well. We also have records of decision for each of our sites that specifically talk about the cleanup and how it's going to be achieved and the remedial action objectives that you're going to meet at any cleanup site. We have the method of funding was we get funded annually through the Corps of Engineers Civil Works budget. That's one of the benefits of FoosRap as well, is that we have program presence in Washington, D.C., as well as it sounds kind of corny, but in this case, you literally have an army behind you in the case that we're actually coming out and doing this type of work. And we're part of a national program. I have another slide that talks about that, where we have a lot of other industry experts that are dedicated to sites out east, as well as centers of expertise that help us out in a lot of our documentation, as well as maintaining a program presence so that what one site does kind of is consistent with the sites around the nation, meaning all the mission sites. So our annual budget is something that's publicly available. There's a Civil Works Corps of Engineers website that has the president's budget and what we get from Congress in the annual water appropriations bill, as well as work plans each year. So if everybody's ever got any questions about that, you can catch me on the side. I can talk about that stuff all day as far as from an overall program management perspective. So that's the main part of what I do. I mentioned CERCLA already, but the overview of where we are at. I will point out that this is a kind of a slide. We have a recent one, but on our website we have links to an annual report that our entire program puts out. So there's information on every FoosRap site in the nation, to include the St. Louis sites. We put out this annual report every fiscal year. It comes out around January timeframe, so this one is from the FY24. But this is one thing that's specifically from that. It will show you kind of the overall CERCLA process. Some of you are probably intimately familiar with that, some of you may not be, but it shows where we are at. We can always point out that for our sites here in the St. Louis, we are post record of decision, moving into the actual remedial design, remedial action phase. Initial remedial design is done for all the St. Louis sites, and now we're specifically in the remedial action phase. However, sites are so big that we do have individual work plans for everywhere that we go to make sure that we are doing things and going after the contamination in accordance with the record of decision. And EPA has a hand in that, and making sure that what we're going to do, we're doing what we say we did, and then when we're done, we did what we say we were going to do from that overall record of decision. And then what we can't see there is once we're done, the sites, when they're cleaned up or get to a stage where there may have to be institutional controls that are on some sites out east, it will go over to Department of Energy for long-term management. I mentioned the national program and how we are part of that. We are the furthest west, of course. We are part of Mississippi Valley Division, that dark purple on there on the left-hand side of the screen. And then you have Lakes and Rivers Division, and then North Atlantic Division, who have other FoosRap sites that they manage as well.
So those sites are all, why are those sites FoosRap sites versus other huge cleanups? Like, there are a lot of other cleanups going on, right?
That's a great question. I think that goes back to the FoosRap Authority. And FoosRap is associated with Manhattan Engineering District and Atomic Energy Commission activities. So that is why, very similar to Superfund as far as contaminated sites being cleaned up in accordance with CERCLA, but this is the case where Congress specifically lined out these and a program specifically designed to go after the contaminations of those entities from back in the day. Drilling down to the St. Louis level and what we are in charge of here, of course, the focus of tonight and the CAG will be the North St. Louis County sites, and Coldwater Creek, of course, is part of that. But on the bottom right is the St. Louis downtown site where a lot of the actual processing happened, and then the North St. Louis County sites where, of course, the storage happened. And I'll go through some of that. That's going to be in some of the historical timeline from there. But on this map is one of the sites that we also manage is the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant site. There's information about that on our website, but it's just part of our overall environmental portfolio in the St. Louis district. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Just a snapshot of these St. Louis sites, and I already mentioned kind of our authority to Owen's question earlier about the Manhattan Engineering District and the Atomic Energy Commission. That's kind of where our authority stops. Unless it's a waste that's commingled or mixed with the MED AEC contamination, which can happen from time to time, but it's a case. I'll say there have been instances in the past where, for instance, the St. Louis downtown site, arsenic is one of the contaminants of concern because it's associated with the processing from back in the day. However, there are other entities at the St. Louis downtown site that used arsenic in some of the things that they did, railroad ties, things of that nature. So it's a case where, as on the program management side, on the technical side, we always have to stay true to our authority because it can always come back to certain individuals. If you're doing something that is outside of your authority, it can be a violation of fiscal law, and that is a no-no for sure. So just it's one of those nuances that is not necessarily, it's not easy to explain, but not necessarily always put at the forefront as far as what we can do and what we can't do.
For this CAG, the second, third, and fourth bullets are the sites we're talking about.
Right. And that's going to come up a little bit later, talking about the drilling down into the specifics of each site. I don't talk much. I just wanted to mention the St. Louis downtown site, but to your point, the focus is right here. And for the most part, the St. Louis Airport site is sending properties in Coldwater Creek. So, but we can always answer questions and talk about some of the history associated with SLAPS and history associated with the Laddie Avenue properties as well. And that's where the Hazelwood Entry Storage site on there. So.
So for CAG members, if you have questions, just a reminder, you can put your placards up.
Yeah.
Take a look at it.
How often do the record of decisions change, and how, in like a couple of sentences, how does that process work? I don't need to superintend.
No, I think that's a great question because the record of decision for the North St. Louis County sites was signed in 2005, so 20 years old, right? And one could, it's intuitive to say, well, that's really old. So what does that really mean? Every site that goes through and starts remedial action, or any site, actually, after the ROD is signed, and once you start remedial action, you go into what's called a 5-year review process. Every 5 years, per CERCLA, we go through and create and answer questions of the old ROD. So the remedy, we're on our 5th cycle of the 5-year review right now. So we go in and you answer specific questions, you do community interviews, we do site inspections, EPA, Missouri Department of Natural Resources, Department of Health and Senior Services, also invited as well, to do site inspections and make sure that when you're done with that 5-year review process, you can make the statement that the remedy selected in the ROD will be protected in our case. Sometimes the remedy is implemented and you verify that it is protective. In our case, you verify that it will be protected once implemented, meaning you're evaluating all of the remedial actions that were done in accordance with the ROD. You're looking at the cleanup levels to make sure they're still consistent with the current standards out there. So there's a process to make sure that if you need to do updates, you do. And there's another process we're going through right now. I mentioned it on our last public meeting. We are going through the process of implementing explanations of significant differences. That means as you go through the process and the ROD ages, there may be things that you identify that were not necessarily addressed in that original record of decision. Coldwater Creek is one of them. Coldwater Creek was one vicinity property in that original record of decision. As you start sampling and you realize, hey, this is a bigger problem than what was originally estimated, you want to make sure that you're documenting that appropriately. So one of the ESDs that we have right now is officially adding those adjacent properties all along Coldwater Creek. That's just one of them. Other things that we're doing to make sure that we're getting as much of the potentially or previously inaccessible contamination. So there are things that you do to make sure that as you implement the ROD and execute it, that there's a process to make sure that if there's something that needs to change, then you go through that process and you can change that.
Thank you. Let's go to Laura and then we'll go to Ashley.
First of all, thank you for talking about that, about the ROD, because I think there's been a lot of belief in the community that in order to amend a ROD, that you had to go through some type of a congressional process or an authorization process. It is kind of like an agreement. I mean, I didn't include in my bio, I worked for 30 years in Washington, D.C., and I was there. Item number 2, I helped to negotiate that transfer of authority from Department of Energy to the Army Corps of Engineer. And also we worked on the ROD. I was working as a government affairs rep for St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and the airport. So the firm that I was working with. So the ROD was an imperfect agreement from many of our perspectives. And so I think as you move in the cleanup, it's really important to have these 5-year reviews. And it's interesting to learn that you're at a 5-year review now, because that would be a conversation that we as a group might be involved in. So, because we're just finding out, and you all have been very active in expanding the properties. You're now buying properties, understanding that footprint maybe needed to be pushed back a little bit to understand where some of the contamination still existed. So that is great, and I just wanted to highlight that to anybody that may have heard that the ROD required some type of act of Congress, because it doesn't to change it. The other thing is on Laddie Avenue. I know it's not on here. Is that because it's taken care of? I mean, I grew up near Laddie Avenue, so.
It's the
there's a slide later that talks about Laddie Avenue, and yes, there's still stuff under some of the buildings, but it's substantially complete.
Are the ball fields contained in that, or are they on the air slab?
No, ball fields are slabs.
Go to Ashley and then we'll go.
For good context, could you please provide the years in which you guys have not yet met the EPA standards? And could you please tell us what kinds of standards you guys have yet to meet, or you guys are still working out significant differences? Which years the 5-year review is still pending information to EPA?
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, so the 5-year review that would have been 2020, that 5-year review, did they have some questions about that?
Yes, they did, and we addressed it via an addendum.
Okay, so that addendum, was that published yet?
It is gone final, but I don't think it's been put on our website yet.
Okay, so is that the 2020, is that the first time you guys did not meet the EPA standard for that 5-year review?
So I think that some of the things that you're saying are not necessarily correct. John,
is this a terminology thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a process, and I think it's okay to talk. Yeah, we go through a process with EPA, and they are part of the review process for that 5-year or every 5-year review. And the last one in 2020, We went through an extensive cycle of review process to make sure that the statements that we were making that the remedy will be protective were consistent. EPA issued their own independent protectiveness statement because we were kind of up against a deadline for it has to be signed. There's a statutory requirement that it has to be signed. So we went ahead and signed it. EPA provided their own independent protectiveness statement that said that they would agree with it being protected if certain things were done. We went through the process and made sure that we were doing that. So things like temporary institutional controls, and I have a slide about that. Groundwater monitoring as well. We have a slide about that. So there are things, and it's a process, right? It's same thing with rocks. It's imperfect, but we make sure that we go through and take those steps to agree as federal agencies on some of the things that could help in the overall implementation of that remedy.
Is that the first time?
Can we pause for 1 second just to ask Chuck, do you want to add anything and maybe grab the mic if you don't mind?
I don't have to be stationary, so move around. I'm used to doing that. As I said, I was an instructor in nuclear power. I used to make sure the students were awake.
I'm hoping that you were nicer than so yes, there's a process that goes into it. Yes, we did have points that we wanted to talk about. And as far as I remember, the 2020 5-year review was the first time that we had any kind of significant, where we had to go back and forth over the course of time and work things out. We have actually gotten them worked out, and now we're on the 5th 5-year review for this year, 2025. So,
Let's keep going because there's more presentation and this is going to be like very bite-sized conversations on each of these things. So far, I heard, hey, 5-year review, good topic for upcoming meeting. So I tagged that. Let's go.
I think my question may be kind of premature, but I'll ask it anyway. Up underneath this 5-year review, I know previously in many of the town halls and things that we've had in the past, the cleanup focused on from Hazelwood to St. Denis, right? Mm-hmm. And so for years we've asked, what about past St. Denis? And recently you all released a document that said that there is potential for exposure for 600 acres and 700 homes or something like that, all the way up through from 270 to the river. So was that found in this 5-year review? Or I'm asking, we've been told that it was just surface along Coldwater Creek past St. Denis. We've asked, was there any exposure past St. Denis in Lindbergh? And we were told that it's just surface. It wasn't nothing to be alarmed by you all. So my question to you all tonight is, what changed?
You have a map. You have a map later on.
Yeah, there is. We do. Yeah, I do have a map, and I think that maybe some things are getting mixed up in the things that bullets on slides and things of that nature, because the Coldwater Creek sampling, to be honest, it would have been great if it started very early on in the process. We didn't start a significant amount of sampling until 2012. And 14 miles of creek takes a long time to do. And that was a monumental effort on all the individuals that did that every day for a long period of time. So it takes time to get that data back and figure out how big the problem is. We've been able to do that to get to the end of the Coldwater Creek and put together the map on our website that shows all of the individual areas we've identified that need some type of remediation in the future. And a lot of those areas are north of St. Denis Bridge. And that's part of that overall plan and trying to figure out the best method of going and actually attacking each individual area, because every property, every area along Coldwater Creek, whether it's the banks around that area, have differences associated with how do you access it? Can you get access with the property owner? Do you need to use an adjacent property? Do you need to come at it from across the creek? So there's a lot of work to do.
Sure.
And we have started that with the creek bank near Jenna Elementary. That's actually north of St. Denis. There's areas just that are, I'm trying to think that south of St. Denis is St. Sim Park, Duchesne Park, the Cades Cove properties that we're working on as well. So significant amount of work to do, but it's not that we're not definitely not going to, we're not going to not address those areas for sure. Because that's all part of that overall map. And I think I do have a slide that has the map on there. And we have those individual maps on our website as well that show us our status maps of what we call them. So hopefully that has been some information that has been consumed by the community to show, hey, this is a good faith effort to make sure that everybody understands where these contaminated areas are.
I think what we're doing is kind of outlining like the areas of question where we want to delve deeper and understand more. And there's reasons why these questions are getting asked. So I think these are great first cut responses, and then we can go more. Let's do one more comment or question from Kim, and then see more of your presentation.
This is just a comment. Can I just see a show of hands from all of us? Who played in the creek? Coldwater Creek? No, the creek, Coldwater Creek itself.
Yeah, people are raising
All right.
their hands.
So I'll tell you, St. Sin's beautiful and it's flat, right? So is Fort Bell Fountain. If you ever played down there, or you know what, I went to St. Angela, and I'll tell you, we went down there for, we had, with school, we went to Fort Bell Fountain, but that's not where I grew up. And I'm gonna tell you, I've seen Robin's team, and I'm an engineer, and the areas that they had to test, and the reason it took so long, the area I grew up by Paddock Estates, the creek is deep and swift and dangerous, okay? So when this team of engineers, and I'm gonna speak 20 years as an engineer, I'm gonna put my engineer hat, I'm gonna take off my doctorate hat and my provider hat, and I'm gonna tell you, these engineers are deep in these ravines, and the creek is swift, and it's fast, and when it floods, it comes up high. And so now you're gonna put these guys in that creek, testing, and it's dangerous, okay? So when it's fall, and it's winter, and it's swift, it takes time, okay? A lot of time, and they're putting their life at risk.
And we will surely
Okay,
hear about.
and I just want to put that out there, that when they say it takes time and it takes years, it's not the meandering creek of St. Sin, and it is not the meandering creek of Fort Bell Fountain. If y'all live in North County, you know that, okay? Just gonna put this out there.
Thanks so much for doing you guys' job. We really appreciate it.
Right, so we know this. Anybody who actually lives here, let's put that aside about how easy it is, and it should be done in a year, because it's not an easy task. This is a dangerous creek, especially when it's flooding. Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Chantel get in, and then we're gonna go to the rest of them. Chantel.
Yes.
Comment or question?
Question. So this document that I'm currently reading, give me 2 seconds, I have to pull it back up.
Are you going back to the like geography?
Yes.
Question.
It says the USACE is considering modifying the selected remedy to the document changes to the ROD geographical area to include floodplain properties adjacent to Coldwater Creek from Dunn Road to the Missouri River. If this change is implemented, the ROD boundary would expand approximately 750 acres and include more than 600 properties adjacent to Coldwater Creek is what I'm. So my question is, what changed from previous to now that you're moving beyond that St. Denis area is what I'm asking.
Do you know what that document is that you were just reading?
Yes, it's a document from the US.
I answered a question a little bit earlier about the ESD.
What's the ESD?
The explanation of significant differences. That's what you're referring
Yes.
to. And Honestly, that's more of an administrative thing because we have been sampling those properties for years. And I mentioned that the original ROD only had Coldwater Creek as a vicinity property. So we need to administratively say that all of those properties are underneath the ROD. Even though our investigation takes us that way and we continue until we find no more contamination, you have to go through the administrative process to make sure that we have the authority to go and do that. And we always did, but you still have to clean up the paperwork as well, and that's what the ESD is doing.
If they know the areas that they're mentioning is contaminated already, why are they going backwards? I don't get it. Why are they going backwards, saying that we gotta do this, do that, whatever? But if you already know those areas are contaminated, is it the money that the government is paying that's taking so long? Are they paying in time? What is it?
Are you talking about us, Corps of Engineers, and doing remediation, or?
Yeah.
I think what they're doing is acknowledging what you're just saying, and they're going in and cleaning up the records to say, hey, in our work, we discovered that it's deeper. The problem is further out than is in the ROD. So you're now going in and changing the ROD to say, we need to include these additional properties. So they are acknowledging that there were issues.
I'm moving. I think I'm moving.
And they have to do it in paper.
I want to make sure we get through the rest of the content here so we have more time for questions. So everybody hang tight. We'll open up again in a few minutes. Let's get through more of your presentation.
Okay, yeah, and I can power through it just so that we can make sure we have plenty of time for questions and stuff like that. This is an ongoing conversation. So it's not ending tonight. It's not ending anytime soon. We'll always be here like we have for many years. So, so I'll just start doing that. And a lot of this information is taken directly from the ROD as far as history, the ROD, and also we have a community involvement plan that has some good information in it as well as far as history of the sites. And I mentioned it earlier, why we're here today, what actually happened to do that. So, specific to the St. Louis Airport site, Atomic Energy Commission, once again, that's what the AEC stands for. And this is kind of fast forwarding from the St. Louis downtown site area to where we're at in the St. Louis Airport site. For storage, they purchased the slabs, and then by 1960, they had quite a bit of material there. And then as you keep going down the timeline, there's changes of hands in the actual material itself. Transportation over to the Laddie Avenue properties, as already mentioned, another private company shipping some of the material out, and then at the actual St. Louis Airport site from 66 to 70, I think it was about 69, they removed most of the residues at slabs specifically, and then they added 1 to 3 feet of clean soil over it to basically kind of cap it in place at the time. Still a lot of subsurface radioactivity there, and that's years down the road in the timeline. That's when we would come along and clean up a lot of slabs. But moving forward in that timeline, in 1973, AEC transferred the ownership of slabs to the St. Louis Airport Authority, who still currently owns it, and we're a very thankful tenant of them right now at the St. Louis Airport site. And mentioned Westlake Landfill earlier. That's another change of hands of the actual material of itself. That's why Westlake Landfill is not in FUSRAP, because of the possession of material and how Superfund works and who is responsible for doing specific cleanups. So that material was just out there at slabs for a long period of time, over 20 years, before anything was really done to actually try and contain some of it. So yeah, it was allowed to migrate from slabs, from the Hazelwood Interim Storage Site, surface water runoff, rain events, things that happen. If there was wind-blown areas around the Laddie Avenue site as well, that's how some of that contamination migrated off-site. And also downstream Coldwater Creek and also into the floodplain when you had successive flooding events, bringing it into the floodplain, depositing sediment which is what the material actually adheres to, and years of that happening.
At this point in history, I think it's important to note when the material was cleaned up at the SLAPS site, that's what ended up at Westlake landfill. They scooped it all up, dumped what was left over here. No.
It was from Lady Avenue.
They took it from Laddie over to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Laddie.
Yeah, right.
Correct. I'm reading it from a distance. I meant Laddie.
Yeah, it was from Futura, yeah.
You're correct.
They scooped it up and sent it to Westlake.
You can ask, we're gonna try to stop the questions for a few minutes in a sec, but go ahead and ask your question, and then we're gonna go through this a little bit more.
I just wanted to ask, because I'm looking at that circle overview timeline, that slide that you had up, is there a way you can put that back up? So, kind of what Laura was saying, kind of like it's imperfect, the rod having to go back now. So, when you're doing this timeline, and I think we learned this in Westlake, but I want to refresh. So the remedial investigation is what, so that one right there, we're on it at the very top. So that is what directs you. You investigate the site all the way through the process to come up with the ROD, which is the cleanup plan. And I guess kind of what I'm hearing and what I've never had an answer to, how come all these areas now that are under investigation, what happened during that initial remedial investigation to not include those areas? Who made the decision? Because as a lot of people in the room have said, that creek has flooded for a long time. I mean, was there not somebody on the team that was like, man, this thing floods, we ought to probably check these parks in these areas that's flooded?
Not knowing the specifics of back in the day and how the funding came, how much funding was available, you do have to prioritize things. So I think that was probably part of that, and you'll see this on a lot of sites. Remedial investigation can only take you so far before you need to move on and get to a record of decision so you can take action. And there's also a thing that was done by, this is part of the timeline, and I'll go back to it, maybe it's a segue into that, in that Corps of Engineers started taking action right away in 1997. So I guess I'll kind of answer that question while moving us along a little bit, is once FUSRAP was established and then eventually transferred over to the Army Corps of Engineers in 1997, FUSRAP came in, did what's called an engineering evaluation cost analysis before the ROD was even signed to start doing remediation at SLAPS and at Laddie. So
you had to get the money first that would allow you to do the.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. And then that was appropriated by Congress. So just kind of up to them to.
Right, so that was kind of the, I guess, the beauty of the program back in the day, and that's why it was given to the Corps of Engineers, because Congress said, DOE, you're not going fast enough. So that's why it started with the Corps of Engineers, and the amount of funding that was appropriated back in the day was specifically used for St. Louis Airport site remediation over 600,000 cubic yards, and then the Laddie Avenue property was, the Hazelwood Vineyard storage site area over 200,000 cubic yards.
And then my other question is, so, and this might be different, so at Westlake, we have a supplemental remedial investigation, right? Because the same thing happened. They went to investigate it, didn't go far enough, had to come back and do a brand new, oh, not really brand new, they didn't have to go over all the cores, they had to do new ones and spread out across the site. Is that similar to what you guys are in now? Is this like, are we, because I know, are we back to the investigation phase of Superfund, and then we have to work down all those little.
Right, you can sometimes do them, Carol, you can.
That's what I'm asking.
No, that's a great question. What we do now with all of our sampling is actually called pre-design investigation sampling, meaning we're post-remedial design. So we have a lot of data from the previous remedial investigation that gives us an idea, but it doesn't give us the whole picture. In order for us to develop detailed designs for all of these areas, we need more data. So we go out and do more sampling called pre-design investigation sampling. So there's sampling happening every day. There will be sampling happening every day for years because it helps us and the engineers to develop those detailed designs so they can remediate as efficiently as possible, identifying specific pockets of contamination to go and do that.
Everybody can see the thumbs up from the back of the room, but I see it. A few questions.
Okay. Okay, so on the timeline there, kind of mentioned when we got the mission, started the remediation at SLAPS, started the remediation of the old piss piles. In the old picture, there's actually an in-progress picture of remediating some of the piles in the old rail spur that was there at one point in time. And the Futura buildings where that property owner is still there doing work on that, or his own business on that property. And then the Rod side in 2005. One of the things that I can't see on the screen, but when DOE did have the program, they did support some things on Laddie Avenue, and that's how the piles actually kind of started, is they needed an interim storage area, so they started those piles. Property owner did something with those as well, that's neither here nor there, but so DOE started some of that process back in the day, and that's some of that data from DOE in that bottom right that talks about DOE performed some characterization surveys and field investigations with some of the data that was used to develop the record of decision. Okay, I'm just going to breeze through these because some of the stuff we've kind of already talked about, but it's a little bit more in the St. Louis airport site as far as that remediation. It took 10 years to remove all those over 600,000 cubic yards from that site, even though it was rail spur was right there, didn't have a whole lot of logistical challenges associated with that, but that's a lot of material. You also have already mentioned funding constraints at some point in time, depending on what Congress appropriates to the national program, and then it gets divvied up amongst all the FUSRAP sites as mentioned earlier. So we still maintain our government facilities and our loadout area at the St. Louis airport site. Some of you have been there, so appreciate the opportunity to talk about that and kind of show the area that we have and the extensive amount of investment that we have made in the program, as well as for all of the pieces of equipment, our own dedicated laboratory, as well as all the contractor personnel that we have working at the sites. The Laddie Avenue properties, that was one of the things mentioned earlier. Yes, the Laddie Avenue properties completed for all of the accessible material. There is inaccessible material that is still underneath some of the Futura buildings there, and that's one of the things that we are working through to develop the institutional controls for long-term stewardship of those sites, and working with DOE LM to actually transfer those sites as a move forward in the progress for the program, as every single site in the FUSRAP portfolio throughout the nation will eventually be in DOE Legacy Management's hands, and some of it's just for records management, but some of it could be for managing the institutional controls with the property owners at the individual sites. All right, so the meat of a lot of the things that we talk about with Coldwater Creek and being part of SLAP's DPs, there has been a lot of progress, like the cubic yardage along the way, been able to identify specific areas via the sampling process and remediate or be able to release. It's a kind of a term of the industry, if you will, to make sure that this property is released for unlimited use. So there's a documentation process that we go through, and as the Army Corps of Engineers and following the record of decision, as well as get review from EPA, Department of Health and Senior Services, and DNR for all of those areas that we address. Oh, that was too far. Drilling down into Coldwater Creek, and I mentioned some of this already, so that's kind of good as far as the focus early on and the remediation efforts at SLAPS. And the investigation that DOE did do in some of Coldwater Creek as far as sediments and some of the banks, but not necessarily the floodplain area like we expanded the investigation into. And did mention some of when we started the investigation of Coldwater Creek and kind of how long that took just to get to the end of the Missouri River. A lot of samples taken, still more sampling to do. Mentioned the pre-design investigation that we have been doing for years and will continue to do to help develop those detailed designs that we need to go and remediate those areas. Some of the work that already mentioned, the remediation that we have done up to this point and will continue to do and identify specific areas. And the overall method that we have taken is to make sure that we are addressing areas that have the highest possibility of human contact throughout Coldwater Creek. So the map that we have shows, it's difficult to see on here, easier if it's kind of blown up or printed out from the website with the PDFs that we have that show all of the individual red areas that are, we'll call them pockets of contamination along Coldwater Creek that we will be addressing at some point in time. And then the purple areas are areas that we have indeed remediated already. And then the green areas that we've been able to sample and either release the property or sample, do some remediation, and then release the property. So there's a lot of detailed stuff that we put on here, and this is once again, I don't want to write stuff down. This is one of those things that can definitely deserve some more explanation and answering questions and being able to talk through the process of actually going out and sampling, doing remediation, and releasing properties, and then identifying that on a map.
I think cards started to go up. I'm going to ask you to finish the
Okay.
presentation.
Yeah, and we can go back to
Maybe
slides and
that
reference.
Tonight, some of us, you're going to have to tag questions you want to talk about more in the future. So put them up, and we'll try to get to them.
I know you only gave me 20 minutes. I think we're probably.
You're 5 minutes to the end of the session.
Okay. Oh, wow. I didn't realize. Okay. So some of the activities that we've got going on right now, and these are things that we put out in our public meetings as well, as far as the areas that we are doing work, are completing work, and plan to go to in the future. One of those has been extensive amount of remediation we've done on McDonough Boulevard, and remedial activities going near Laddie Avenue, or what we call VP 38, where we used to have our old trailers at. And then moving forward, we've been doing some properties just south of St. Cyn Park. So we're working with that property owner to make sure that we already have the remediation plan in place, but are starting to clear trees on that area there. And then also doing some remediation closer to SLAPS, as well as working with the Cades Cove residents, as already kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, and starting those remedial activities in around fall of 25 or early 26, depending on the overall timeline and constraints that we could have logistically and weather and whatnot. So other things that we continue to do is our inspection program for all of the areas, as well as installing signs in those red areas in the map, our environmental monitoring program that we've been doing since the very beginning, and our update meetings that we have both virtually and in person. So those are going to be quarterly update meetings that we have that Corps of Engineers does, alternating between the virtual and in person.
So you all have already tested the creek in timber, right?
And anybody familiar?
No, it's not in the airport. It's south, it's not in the same watershed. It's not in the Coldwater Creek watershed. It's a completely different watershed.
No, that's Coldwater Creek where it ran through Kinman.
No, that's Moline Creek.
That's Moline.
Okay.
It's a different watershed.
Let's keep going.
Is it a tributary?
Coldwater Creek running there too.
We can show you on the DNR website, it's a different watershed.
Keep going. You know, there's a lot, probably a ton of prep. I mean, I think there's a lot of things. He's just, he's like skating over the top of it, right?
Right, you said high level, right?
I know, it's really hard. Keep going.
I mentioned it earlier, our interim land use control plan, not necessarily controlling things, but it's just a term of the craft, if you will, to make sure that any areas that we've identified that are contaminated, that we are keeping eyes on them, working with the property owners, doing these inspections to make sure that these areas are not disturbed, and if we find that they are, providing the appropriate support for that, for sure. Those are things that we've been doing for years. We're taking a more active approach now to make sure that these areas aren't being disturbed versus proactive approach and just checking and seeing and waiting for people to come to us to ask. I think this is basically the last slide is groundwater monitoring, and mentioned that. This is actually kind of a area that we have additionally started, and part of that overall 5-year review process is we're installing more groundwater monitoring wells near Coldwater Creek in areas that we're doing remediation in accordance with our record of decision to make sure that the contamination that we're remediating is not affecting anything else. That's part of that overall monitoring program that we have in the record of decision. So, I already mentioned our public meeting that we have coming up as well, the virtual one, and then we'll have another in-person one in the fall. And then the last slide was just our contact information.
Thank you. Earlier you had a picture of a sign, and I know a number of us here, probably everybody here, is concerned about any new exposures happening to people. What triggers the placement of a sign?
The trigger or placement of a sign is when any of the red areas on there, meaning that it's above the remediation goals in our record of decision, that we will, with property owner permission, place the sign.
If they don't give permission, you can't place the sign?
Yes, and actually, that's what I wanted to bring up. There's something called the Fourth Amendment where the government cannot come onto your property, right? Search and seizure. So the government cannot, by law, come onto your property without your permission and do anything, right? That's the whole Constitution. So if the government comes on your property and does something without your permission, that is constitutionally against the law.
Do these homeowners know that there's contamination on their property?
Everywhere that we have sampled and identified contamination, we provide the owner a letter telling them where the contamination is and letting them know contact information to contact us.
So are they then legally liable if the kid goes and makes a mud pie and gets sick?
I don't want to get into it.
Can you know?
There's no reason, I mean, they need to know. I mean, if it's contaminated, would it need?
They get a letter every year.
They do.
And then what they do with that information is up to them.
Yeah. Let's take this one step farther. If you are an entity, if you're a business or a school board and you choose not to share that information with your students or anybody else, that is your business.
Back to your
Let's think about that.
Right, but is it your liability?
Hang on, pause that.
It
This is a huge, this like what happens on personal property.
Yep.
And signage and information.
If you're a school board and you own if you own a school building.
Hang on. This is gonna be a whole conversation.
The school district does, not a school board.
School district does, yeah.
This is what I was like, how is this gonna work? Okay, pause this conversation. This is like hugely important, right? We know the signage in the last year or two was a huge thing. There's real progress. Great, we're getting there, and there's a lot to talk about around that, and there are things that different entities can and cannot do, which I know Kim is flagging, like what you are able to do. So, we will talk about that, and we can talk about it. We're not gonna drill deep right now into that. Are there, I think we're pretty much, I'm gonna take Katie's card, and then we're gonna wrap up this piece, because we're moving into the last 20 minutes of our meeting, and just gonna do a little bit of CAG business before we wrap up for 8:30, so Katie.
So you said in the letters annually to homeowners, what about like apartment complexes? Would each of the units
Katie, can
receive?
you ask this after? We'll take.
Oh, I thought you said you're taking my question.
Sorry, I wanted to, but I don't, I want to be done with that topic, because I think we're just gonna go deeper and deeper on the information chart.
Okay.
You inform
I mean, do you
everyone.
send it to the individual units or just the owner?
No, you'd just be
Just
the
the
owner.
Okay, thank you.
land- the
That's it.
landowner. Thank you. Ashley, final comment or question, and then we're gonna pause
She
this
said
part.
the government have to have permission. No, honey, this government can do whatever they want to do.
Oh, here we go.
And
Can we-
know that, period.
I'm
So
gonna
they
ask-
don't need permission to come on your property, honey? No.
You
We're
talk to
gonna-
them and
Hey,
ask them.
hey, everybody, pause. This is our committee. This is actually for this group to have this conversation. So we're gonna be done in 25 minutes, and then everyone can hang out and keep talking through this and get into like whatever you want. And that's great. I want you to hang out and talk with each other, go approach each other. We're almost wrapping. Ashley, final comment or question on this presentation?
Tried to grab your budget information. I clicked the link. It's not pulling your, for May 2025. If you go on your website, it pulls a 440, 404, does not display. Could you update that so that folks that have budget information, so we don't take up budget time, because I'd like to drill down on the budget stuff, but would you update that on your website?
Yeah, I think maybe it's not going to the right
We'll
website.
get that.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. You are all set for the moment. We will bring you back lots of times. More stuff. Thank you, everyone. There's like, obviously, the people in this room know, pretty much like, oh, you all know it's him. And you all know different things from each other. So we're going to be catching there. I want to say, as you were listening to the presentations, if you didn't know acronyms, if you were like, what is this process they're talking about, it is totally fine. And some people here are engineers, some people here are educators, some great people have like such different backgrounds. Please ask the question. If you have a question and you're like, I just don't get it, say it one more time. Let's like go through it. Let's ask those questions because it's going to help other people in the room. Like there are 80 people in this room or whatever, we have 60 people in the room. We're just going to go through a little bit about what to expect from this committee before we wrap up. And I think that means I'm going to walk over here. We will do in-person or hybrid meetings, sort of pending what you all prefer, what the CAG prefers. Ashley, I'm going to share these slides with you. So you can totally take pictures. Sorry. You can take them, but I will get them to you shortly. We would love it if when there are in-person, I think we had meant in-person or hybrid. I think we'll always do a hybrid option when we're in person. This is me being sloppy. I'm sorry. We may do virtual meetings where we're all virtual, if that makes sense sometimes, just because that's for sometimes works and sometimes makes sense. I will gauge that with all of you. I think at the beginning, it's better to do in person so we get kind of cohered as a group, and that's what many of you told me when I talked to you in advance. Whenever we do this, we will have a hybrid, hybrid. You can come in virtually if you need to. For members, I prefer it if you can come to the table because it's just tricky doing both. I think we're going to try to meet every 4 to 6 weeks. I will work on some scheduling with the committee for the next meeting because we're still maybe at the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, and we'll figure out when the next good time is. And also for venue, we'll figure that out. These meetings will all get posted online, the recordings, along with a simple summary. I don't think there's press here, but in the future, if there is press at any of these meetings, we would just ask them to acknowledge if they're recording things and not to like be pulling CAG members away from the table, which has happened in meetings I've been in, and it's not that helpful. And I know public is welcome here. I would like to check with the committee what times of day and week work for you. So I will be in touch virtually about that, and if you can take a few minutes to get back to me and tell me what is possible, then we can plan the best we can, knowing there's a lot of public interest, and so it's probably not going to be great to do meetings during the workday for people, like there's that like kind of dance. And Jessica's been being our champion finding space for the last session and this one. Here are the qualities we're looking for. If you have suggestions, we want something centrally located with parking, with room, windows are great, right? All these kind of functions. So I will also in my theory ask that and welcome anyone to suggest if you know there's venues that meet our needs. What else do I want to mention? We're getting. I have Jessica and my contact information here for anyone at any time about how this is going, what could be better, what you think we should talk about. And related, I guess, we haven't really planned this, but if you would be interested in being on an admin team to help plan the meetings, like a call or two between CAG meetings, let me know, or let Jessica know. And that can be a changing cast of characters. There's no, like, it doesn't have to be serving a particular term, but it's going to be way better if there are multiple brains.
When you say admin, you don't mean administrative. You mean-
Sorry, my shorthand for like a little plan, a little planning team.
Planning.
Think about a planning team. Is that better? Other words? And actually, after being like, we gotta stop because we have to get to other things, I think we're close to, let me go through a few next steps. And then I'm gonna give CAG members a chance to share kind of final thoughts of where we are, knowing 2 hours passes very quickly when you want to go deep on stuff that's kind of a cleanup. So, but we are gonna wrap in just a minute. So for some next steps that I captured, and there may be more that Jessica or Chuck have, but I'll send out that poll for location and date. We will post the slides and the recording. We will schedule the next meeting. Cynthia Bauer, who was here early but couldn't stay, who is a member, asked me to mention that the Fluorescent Environmental Quality Commission needs at least one more person. She said, I know there are people from the public who are here, so I'm saying it on her behalf, if anybody's interested.
Be a member of the city of Florissant.
You have to be a
resident.
Resident.
The resident, not a member.
Of the city of Florissant.
City of Florissant, resident.
Okay, great. Any other next steps you can think of, either of you? Jessica?
No.
Pretty much just like getting ourselves going, right? We gotta get it.
Yeah, so the technical advisor that Ona mentioned, Skio, they are working on a presentation to come present to you all on the PDIR FSSC pre-design investigation report and yes, thank you. So they're working on that, and they'll be out maybe this fall to present that to the CAG.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to go around the table and give CAG members a chance to share final thoughts. It can be just a thank you. It can be a, oh, like sort of how you doing as we wrap up.
I'm just honored to be here, be part of this process.
I'm going to pass the mic. I know it's a tiny bit intimidating, but then the people behind you here. I think he just said thank you.
No, I think this was a good first meeting.
Is that not on? Is it got a red button or a green button?
No, I think this was a good first meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having us here.
Thank you very much for having us here. I just wanted to say, I think moving forward, maybe it would be a good idea to set some norms in the beginning and put one of the norms as positive intentions, because I think every single person's in this room for the right reasons, and we should remind ourselves of that every meeting.
Thank you, very honored to be here tonight. The one thing I stress is structure overall in our meetings, so that we can kind of get things we need done and be able to move forward on agendas prior to spinning our wheels of the committees I've been on before the past. Thanks.
Just like to say thank you. This was very informative. A lot more to learn and dig into, and I look forward to being a part of this discussion and also being a part of the solution.
I just wanted to commend the U.S. Army Corps on their slide deck for tonight. It was very informative. You guys are doing a great job from where we came from and so where we were now, so thank you all so much. And do you mind if I do a topic related but not related to this announcement? Okay.
No, go
yes.
ahead.
Okay, so with the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act that just recently passed, we are hosting a town hall next Thursday, the 24th, at the James Egan Gymnasium. Early arrival is highly suggested. This will be the first town hall regarding is the announcement on the next steps. We want to hear your comments, concerns, questions, all of the above. And so thank you all again. Hope to see you all next Thursday.
If you send,
6 to 8 p.m.
if you send me the info, we'll send it out.
Perfect. Chantel, will you send it to me too? I'll put it on the Coldwater Creek site. Sure.
I'll just reiterate what Dr. Jones said. And it's been a long, getting good at communicating with the community. So thank you, and hope to move forward and getting everybody's questions answered.
I agree. I'm honored to be here. I think we have a long way to go, but I feel confident we'll get there.
I'm going to emphasize the need for community input, centering community, and widening our reach. I look around the table and I see a lot of familiar faces, which is great, but we have a whole room full of folks behind us who obviously deserve inclusion, and I think we need to be mindful about what we look like in representation and how wide we need to be representing what North County looks like. And I think that needs to be bigger, wider, and more inclusive.
I really don't know what to say. I really feel for the community. I think this is an essential process that we must go through. I think oversight of all the work that's being done here is crucial. I think everyone is well-intentioned, but lots of times there are rules and regulations that need to be questioned and advocacy that needs to be done. I think this is a great start.
Thank you. Really good meeting. I know it's hard to get through some of these emotional elements and get all of our thoughts on the table, so I commend everybody for that. I really want to just amplify again this opportunity with the 5-year review, and I was wondering if it might be possible to share a kind of an outline of what those steps are. What, is there going to be meetings? I mean, how do we get involved in that? As a CAG, or do we need to talk to our elected representatives and have them engaged in that process? So I'd like to get some.
I just want to say thank you.
I was going to say, it's always tough when you're the last one, the microphone. But thanks to everyone. I look forward to the opportunity to work on this project. There's so much emotion here. It makes a difference. So thank you.
No, I just appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Chantel?
I just want to say, right before I got here, I received a phone call that one of the young ladies who has been a part of my breast cancer organization grew up in Florissant, right along Coldwater Creek, off of Thunderbird and Lindbergh. She passed away moments before I got here. So I'm just asking for prayer for her family and everybody who has been affected by her bright, amazing spirit. And she fought breast cancer for a very long time, and she passed literally minutes before I walked in the door.
Thank you, everyone. Very nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Thanks to those of you listening in online. We will see you soon. Be well. Feel free to stay and talk.
Are you okay?